Today I'm with First Pick. I could not be more excited about today's show because we're joined by Los Angeles Rams General Manager Les Snead. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Ran Carthon. And Ran, before I give you the keys to the podcast mobile, I want to ask Les a question. And Les, you know this, but I've been working with Ran for a few months, and he's gracious, he's inclusive, he's smart, he's hardworking, all these things. And I'm really thankful I get a chance to work with him on this side of the football conversation in the media. But you hired Ran in 2012 from Atlanta to St. Louis at the time, the Rams. You guys worked together from 2012 to 2016. Give us something on Ran that folks may not know about him, because I'm always looking for ammunition that I can use against him.
Wow, something to burn Ran. You know what I mean? Here's the first story I think of that. But this is going to be more compliment, and it probably dates back to when we connected in Atlanta. I do remember when we were talking about bringing Ran on board, and he had actually been a player that probably worked out for us, right? Ran in Atlanta. Maybe the workout setting wasn't your thing. You know what I mean? And I forget, did we hire you as a practice squad player? Did we not? But take all that out. I'll let Ran answer this. But interesting, and it'll be a great point on workouts. Workouts are one thing. One thing I do remember when we said, hey, are we going to make the bet on a former player to come into the front office, is this: hey, when he was in Indy, and whether he was on the roster or practice squad, I do know this: Peyton Manning was fine on third down having Ran Carthon beside him in the huddle, and then when they broke the huddle, to be beside him as that either the 6th, 7th, or 8th OL, depending on their protection scheme. So big picture is this: you knew he was a football player. You knew he had football acumen, great genes. So we made the bet, and here we are today. Now, if you want anything on Ran, maybe, you know what, you need to watch him play 11-on-11 football instead of working him out, in underwear.
That's a compliment, man. That's great. No, that's and in my limited experience with Ran, I've been incredibly lucky to work with him. I'll say that. All right, Ran, happy time, fun time's over. You what do you got for Les, your former boss?
No, so just to start off and tell you guys obviously you know who he is, but I just want to do a little formal introduction. So let's start with this.
Plenty on me, Ryan. This one right here can get interesting.
Let's start with this. Proud Auburn alum, former tight end. As you can see here by the picture, if you guys know his son Logan, you're looking at his twin right here. But a proud Auburn alum, former tight end, one of the youngest directors ever hired in the National Football League. I think he might have been 23 years old. He's an innovator in just the way he thinks, the way he processes, the way he goes about his business. One of the longest tenured GMs we have in our league. He comes to us by way of L.A., and when I say L.A., some will say Los Angeles, but I'm saying Lower Alabama, and he's from Eufaula, Alabama, and none other for us to have on our show as our guest, my man, Samuel Lester Snead. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us with the First Pick podcast, man. Welcome to the show, Les.
I'm jacked to be here. Hey, with the First Pick podcast, I got a sign on my screen. It's Carthon's Corner. So, it's not just with the First Pick. But I can say this, Ryan, and going back to, there's an element of, I call it, a lot of times I'll send a text with people and it'll be the football emoji. It'll be FAM fan, little strong emoji. But there is this element when you grow up in this business, from A to Z, there is that element where, hey, it's business, but there is an element of family in it. We all do hard things together. So when Ran reached out, it's an easy yes.
I'm incredibly thankful.
But not many people introduced me as Samuel Lester. When I was in college, people would always ask me if I was, kin to Sam Snead or not, the golfer. So depending on how hard the class was whether I was going to give an honest answer or not. So, but if I could tell the professor maybe was a little bit excited about Sam Snead, we might run with it.
Well, I know what Ran's next question is going to be. It's not like, you sell yourself as the everyman, just for me on the outside looking in, not knowing you other than seeing you and hearing you talk. But Rand, Les ain't no dummy. Like, let's keep it real. I think you were an academic All-American coming out of Auburn, and there were some other things after that I think Rand had his eyes on.
Yeah, so here's the number one question for me out the gate. And again, Les, this whole thing is designed for us to get to know, well, we know you. I know you. I've lived with you for 9 years, so I know you. But we want other people to get to know you the way that I know you. And so my first question was,
I don't know if they can handle that, Rand. There's some idiosyncrasy, whatever we pronounce that word. There's some eccentric behaviors there that let's keep between us.
yeah, but that makes you. That's what makes Les. So Les, like, people don't know this, but you were actually accepted into medical school after you were done playing at Auburn. But, and this goes to your idiosyncrasies, but you chose to be a GA for legendary coach Pat Dye. Can you tell us about you getting accepted into medical school, and then what was the overall decision in you becoming a GA?
I was headed toward doing the applications, Rand. So I don't want to George O'Leary this thing and you know what I mean? But that's what I went to school for, pre-med. And there was the element in those days where you're going to go to med school, where you're going to, there was you dripped into physical therapy school. There's MCAT, but was heading that way. And that's where I was going. And that was going to be the applications. That was the plan. Interesting. Probably read a book, two things, being from Lower Alabama, small town in Alabama. We can talk about that all day, being, raised by football in a sense, but the movie Doc Hollywood actually had an impact on myself. And it is interesting in rural parts of that part of the country. Even Auburn University has started, let's call it, it's evolved since I was there, a medical program designated for, being able to, making sure people in that part of the country, in those rural areas, have proper medical care. So, and then there was a book by Ben Carson, and I forget what it was called. When he was one of the first to separate, if you call it twins, that were they're basically their heads were
conjoined
together. So, and he was at Johns Hopkins, and that was a very influential book. So went through that, but very similarly, going back to, and I'll go to this, raised by football, single mom. She didn't go to college, kind of that, nothing really traumatic about that. But a lot of the father figures in my life were football coaches, right? There's some definitely teachers and educators, and boy, did they had to put up with my stubborn side, right, to try to get me closer to being a productive young man than, just a bucking Bronco. But I remember Rodney Garner, who's coaching at the University of Tennessee now, was my coach. Our defensive coordinator Wayne Hall. He was one of those guys. I was a really good scout team player, and I earned Wayne Hall's probably respect by giving his defense a good look. At that point, I don't think they would ever let me go practice with the varsity, Rand. It was like I was too good being on scout team, right, for that defense. You know what? Sometimes I didn't agree with that. Sometimes I didn't like it. A lot of times I pouted. I went and did my job, helped the cause. But it was interesting when it got down to it, when those two men said, "We'd like for you, we think you would be good at something in football. We'd like to offer you a GA spot." It was like, at that point in time, it's just, yes, sir. You drop everything. I don't know if that's a sound decision, intuitive. I know this, whatever that was going on in how you make decisions, there was that element of like, I trust these people. They've been hard on me, but I can tell they love me. And at the end of the day, they think this is a good thing for me. So you know what? Let's forget the medical career. Always knew that there was you could always go back to that, but this opportunity may not. There may not be another opportunity like this again if you do if you go the med school route.
let me follow up on that. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead, Ryan. You got it.
I was going to ask a quick question based on what you just said there, because I know a lot of the things that I've heard you talk about and some of the philosophies I've heard you read. I've read some of the quotes that you've said, and it feels like you and Sean McVay both share this idea. Is this idea that you can only control what's within your purview? So when you were stuck on the scout team and you perhaps weren't necessarily excited about it, it feels like whether it was innate or not, you sort of manifested that into good things. And my question is, how do you translate that sort of viewpoint on the world? How do you translate that into running an organization, whether it's with the folks you hire or the guys that you sign or that you draft? Because it feels like that's part of the culture of the LA Rams is understanding what your job is and not worrying about the things that are outside of your control.
Yeah, there could be, that's a big, broad, there's a little bit of philosophy there, right? That's your reality, right? You're on scout team. Someone thinks you're really good at it. Let's call it this. Instead of going down and getting, again, now this is right. They have this wisdom. They have this macro view. You as the teenager, right? There may be an element of ego. I want to get to the varsity field. But if you think about that, I go over there, I get probably a few reps to be the third and fourth team tight end. Right? Doesn't mean I'm not going to dress on game day per se, play a role, but I can come down to this scout team and get all the first team reps and give that number one defense a look. And in that year, in 1993, we go undefeated. So how much did those good looks compound? So you see that. So here's what I've said to this is whatever you're doing, that's what you're doing in that present moment, right? You could I always say you could rewind and go, wow, what could I have done to, be number 2 tight end and to number 4? Could I have gone to a lesser school and started all that? And you could fast forward. But in that moment, right, here's 2 hours on that practice field. This is where I'm at. Okay, I might as well be the best in the world at it, or at least the best on this practice field at it. I go when I was probably entry level, Ryan, in Jacksonville, probably 1996. And I can remember the evolution process of being entry level and picking up players from the airport when let's call it, we had attrition. We're going to bring a new player in. You would pick them in. We were either going to work out. Inevitably, we were getting to the doctor's office and we were going to do physicals on the player, right? Well, if you had 5 players and you went to the doctor's office and there had to be 5 physicals done, there's a lot of time spent in the lobby. And I can remember going there. I would rather be doing something else besides this. But what I did do is, okay, I'm not going to sit here in this lobby and be bored, right? So what else can I do? In those days, we didn't really have, you didn't have the technology you did today, but I ended up taking books that I needed to read in there, and even books on cassette, those old, not 8 tracks, but cassettes, have a Walkman in the let's call it the lobby of the doc's office, waiting on these players to get their physical. But at that point in time, you didn't have a lot of time to read. But I do know this, in that hour and a half block, yes, would I want to be doing something else besides sitting in the lobby? Yes. But, oh, by the way, this is where I'm at. How can I make the most of this? Now, Ryan ran every now and then. I think I've told the story when there was maybe a cute nurse that, walked by, maybe I would take the Walkman off and try to flirt with her and, still see if, you could, have a little bit of that, to you. But that's kind of the moral of the story. And I think we've all seen it. If you go into the big picture of football, right, is there's 53 players on a team. There's 68 now. I guess you call maybe 69 with the 16 practice squad players, and with the standard elevations and things like that, no matter who you are, if you come in, you dominate that role. You can't control whether you're going to get a tap on the shoulder or a call up. But if you do dominate that role, you'll have a better chance of probably getting tapped on the shoulder when there's a need. And you'll also have a lot better chance of succeeding, in that call up role if called upon.
And Les, just real quick, because I'll be remiss if I didn't shout her out, but you talked about being raised by a single mom, and I know your mom, so shout out to Bam. What a wonderful woman who, when I say she fully supports Les and his children, like it's unbelievable. And so shout out to Bam and for the job that she's done with you. So
Hey, Rand, you know her. If she was writing my bio, it'd be one heck of a bio. We had artists in here. His group writes my bio. Bam would take that thing. And oh, by the way, hey, getting accepted to med school, I'd have gotten accepted to John Hopkins. I'd have been on my way to being a brain surgeon. But we'd had to. But she's a proud mom and did her role, and she's doing well. Rand, appreciate you asking about her. But I wouldn't be here today without football, without coaches that were pouring into me to help me get right somewhere better than I was when I was with them.
no, and you so with your answer to the first question, you said everything in which I described you in being an innovator, just your thought process. Like I know you to be the type of person that's going to challenge the status quo and challenge the way things have always been done. And you're doing that now with your department. You guys don't go to the combine, you don't go to all-star games, you don't go to most pro days. However, you guys are still one of the better drafting teams and getting these players right from the first round when you're in the first round, because you've traded out of the first round quite a bit. But you've been able to find hits throughout the whole draft process, doing it different from most. Can you talk to us a little bit about your thought process into changing the way you guys scout and how you guys have been able to benefit from it?
Yeah, really good question. I know my wife, Carol, we can definitely talk about her a lot because she's a Duke alum.
Shout out to Kara.
And she's well read, and anytime she reads something, listen to. I think, to be honest with you, if I said something about Rand, it just hit me. He might have been the first person I knew who actually. Just think about this. We're doing a podcast. How many podcasts I listen to now? A lot of them sent to me by my wife here. I think Rand's the first person I knew that listened to a podcast. And I'm like, what is that? That's 2014, 15. So here we are today. But going back, here's what I can say. When Kara and I sit down, never do we kind of sit down here and go, the goal's not to change. The goal's not to, let's call it, disrupt status quo. What we try to do is sit down and go, okay, again, going back to what I said, how are we trying to dominate, let's call it, this phase of the calendar? And how's the best way to go about that? And a lot of times, right, because, football's changed, it's changing, it's ever changing, things are evolving, the way things are done are evolving, is okay, we not necessarily sit out and say we better change with it, but it's just that moment of taking that moment. We're trying to be good or great at this phase. How do we best go about it? That, and a lot of times you do see that, maybe this way of doing things is maybe a little bit outdated. There might be a more efficient way of doing things. We value the combine. There's a lot of information, right, that we get from the combine, that we analyze, that we assess, that we use as a tool, as a data point to help us make a decision. Doesn't mean the entire organization's got to go there for a week and then take a week on the back end to recover from being in. And now we're somewhat 2 weeks behind in what's already a very intense, urgent calendar. So it can be things as simple as that. And here's an interesting thing, Rand, is how the calendar goes. So, and your coaching staff gets involved with the draft. Okay, at the end of the day, sometimes their first, let's call it their first, their first impression of players in the draft, maybe getting to the combine and seeing those players do everything but football. And that's just because the coaches have been coaching, have been trying to win, right, a given game on a certain Sunday, and and then it goes into the playoffs and things like that. So a lot of times, hey, having the coaches stay back, let them continue doing what they are really good at, like after action review on how the season went and things they can change. And then also allow them to start watching these players play football before we watch them, right, let's call it, run around a dummy in shorts. And that way because psychologically, that first impression, for good or for bad, does weigh a lot. And it's a base rate that everyone is then now working off of, whatever your first impression was. And so to be really disciplined to change your, to get a full evaluation on that initial base rate. So there's nuances in it. It's not necessary to say, hey, let's challenge the status quo. It's really, hey, how do we dominate this phase of the calendar for the Rams? And sometimes that leads to change, innovation, and things like that.
Go ahead, Rand, because I don't want to. I know Les's time is limited, so fire up some more of your questions here, and I'll jump in if I
yeah. So you're one of the longest tenured GMs in today's game. I think maybe Mickey. Well, I know Mickey Loomis is. I think he's the longest tenured. I know you're somewhere in there with Schneider, but you're going into year 14. You've been to 2 Super Bowls. You've won 1. You've drafted multiple Rookie of the Years. You even have a guy that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, arguably the greatest defensive player to ever play the game. Like, what's been the highlight of your tenure as GM of the St. Louis/LA Rams?
The highlight, Rand, is finally each year you try to climb the mountain, you try to get to the top. There's 32 teams trying to get there, and only one does it. And it's not necessarily finally getting to the top of the mountain. And speaking of Aaron Donald, I mentioned recently on a podcast that I did, winning Super Bowl 56, being a part of a team that won it. The thing I remember most is, probably the image I remember most is how much it meant to Aaron Donald. And you think about Aaron Donald, like I said, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best defensive players ever. And I don't think his life would have been complete without checking that box. And to see him along with his teammates and Andrew Whitworth's, and even trading for Matthew Stafford and the stress and drudgery that he went through and had to live through of, hey, this is the reason the Rams traded for me, and to get and finally climb to see those men. And it could be people, Rand, that like Rob Havenstein that we drafted. He might be the last player that moved with us from St. Louis, because Tyler Higbee's still here, but he was I think we were drafting down at the near the crypto center when we drafted Higgs. But seeing someone like Rob Havenstein cash in, get to the top of that mountain, just being a part of that. It's interesting. Maybe winning Wimbledon as a single tennis player feels like that, but I got an inkling that going through that moment together and sharing it with a lot of other individuals on their personal journeys and adventures of life just somehow compounds and is exponentially a deeper fulfillment.
Okay, so but on the flip side is there has to be a downside to it. If there is, like, what's been the downside of your tenure as GM?
Going back, I'll try to go and give a different answer, but I do know this: there is, if you ever have a chance to ski for the gold medal and you end up with the silver, there's not a day that goes by that you don't think about. There's some rumination. The pain's over, it's dissipated. It takes a while, that physical pain, but there's not a day goes by that there's not a moment where you kind of rewind that 2018-19 Super Bowl against New England and you lost. I don't wish that upon anyone. It's, you hit rewind. And Rand, you've been through it in San Francisco. So the cool thing is the pain's over, but the rumination's probably gonna continue on at least for a moment or two during your day. But that I can say this, Rand, 14 years in, wow, how fortunate that is to be around a lot of people to help you get to this point. I don't know if I should even say there's a downside. To be 14 years into a general manager job, and I mean, one of 32, and when you're a kid and you're from Lower Alabama and football's a big part of society, and you're able to be one of those 32, I don't even think I would feel good about sleeping tonight if I did say there was a downside. Man, there is an element of stress. There's an element of drudgery that comes with trying to do hard things, trying to do great things with people. But boy, I'd rather live with that stress and drudgery than live being unfulfilled.
Now I can tell you just off of first experience, and you said it, having lost the one in San Francisco, still to this day, I don't think I've ever watched that game back. Just didn't have the heart to watch it and kind of live through it. I just remember leaving the locker room, just seeing the amount of emotion that was poured into that game, seeing grown men on the floor crying. I just left and went and sat on the bus for 2-3 hours by myself and immediately started typing notes, as to how can we be better next year? What can I do to help us get, over the hump? So I know that feeling, Les. So,
And think about what you just said, Rand, and you just think about it. I always say the ball rolls back down to the bottom of the hill. I'll get the name right. The statue with Sisyphus pushing that ball up, and one must imagine Sisyphus. Ron, you're probably good at this. Get
Sisyphus.
The name right.
You had it right the first time.
Imagine him being fulfilled at the end of the day. When you, like Rand said, when you get there and you lose that game, there's that tendency to go, all right, how do we get to that moment and just score one more point than the other team? But wow, do you realize that, oh, by the way, that ball just rolled all the way back down to the bottom, and you haven't gone through January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, game 1, game 2, game 3. Yeah, it is a daunting it's a daunting psychological task when your brain automatically wants to go, how do we score one more point in that Super Bowl? And then your brain realizes just to get to that game is pretty daunting. And the game theory is set up. It's probably why people really, really enjoy watching football. I mean, it's set up where only 2 teams get to fight for that prize.
Hey, Ryan, if you noticed, he asked you about, the statue. He didn't even think to ask me. He's disrespecting my University of Florida education. So
He knows.
we'll let that one slide.
I mean, it's SEC, Rand. I mean, I might have been in my 40s when I figured out who. If I hadn't married Kara, I would not know who Ryan, help me out again. Who he was. Here's what I do. I know the concept. I know the statue. It's in my office. It's very logical and reasonable to me. But I'm not giving the SEC credit for that one.
So, Ryan, we'll tee up one more question, and then if you're cool with it, we'll take a quick little break.
You know what? We don't, Stryker informed me we don't need to take a break. So hit Les up with a question, and we'll do the 2-minute drill and get him out of here. How about that?
All right, well, let's roll. So another thing people don't really know about you or understand about you is the amount of GMs that you've hired, throughout your tenure. You think about it, myself, Ray Farmer in Atlanta, Brad Holmes, and now James Gladstone. Like, what was it that you saw in each of us that you decided to give us a chance? Because I know a big part of me getting hired in Atlanta was me reminding you a little bit of Farms and how Farms has become a big part of both of our lives. I think we both lean on them in a bunch of different ways. But what was it that you saw in each of us to give us a chance?
Each, just like every human, it's case by case. Everybody's got, different DNA is coded differently. I do think each one of you, and there's been many others who didn't get to 1 or 32, but there was probably an edge that each one of you brought to the Rams. And it was an edge that I couldn't provide as a leader. And maybe no one else in the ecosystem, could. And it just, if we go to you and Farms, you mentioned him, both of you guys, right, had played in the National Football League, and both of you also had lived like the struggles and the stress and drudgery of what it's really like to play in the National Football League, not necessarily to let's call it have a or be blessed with an Aaron Donald type career. So, but to be able to bring that edge to a front office that, like I said, my career ended on that scout team in Auburn, Alabama. So I didn't have that edge. We were all doing football together. So I do think that, and then you combine that with I call it mom, dad, God-given other things that they provided you, you and Ray, and boy, did y'all bring a sharp sword to the group to help us, go try to slay the other 31 teams.
So now we're going to go to a little portion that we're calling On the Clock. It's a rapid fire game. We're going to shoot you off with some questions, and then it's just quick rapid fire. And then for you specifically, we got 6 questions with the first pick part of it. But then I'm gonna follow it up with 2 questions that I've got from our friends here that they wanted me to ask you, so you can prepare.
So here's
yourself.
a good one. I think Kara would tell you, Ryan, if this was me, like if we were at a dinner party right now, I'm no good at these games. This is when I would take my ball and go home. And Rand, being 14 years as a GM, you can kind of take your ball and go home. You're not like 29 and go, okay, I've got to do this to make sure no one doesn't like me or not. I'm ruining the dinner party right now. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
No, these are easy. It's easy.
Okay.
All right, let's start.
I always want to be better at them. You're going to ask a question. I'm going to be sitting here going, holy cow, I'm like a QB staring at, I'm staring at cover 4 and I think it's cover 2 and I'm trying to figure out why. Next thing you know, I get sacked.
Nah, you're going to knock these out of the park. This is easy. The first one, what athlete from another sport would you love to sign if rules didn't matter?
I'm going to go Tiger Woods.
Oh.
See, easy.
There you go.
What's your go-to draft day snack?
That changes. It could be sardines one year. It could be, I'm going to go intermittent fasting and I'll wait till the end of the game to eat.
Because I was going to say your answer can't be a straw. So
you know what? But you know what? It should have been a straw. That's reality. That's the brutal facts of reality, as our friend Brian Sanders would say.
Okay. Now here's
a plastic straw, Ryan. So I try to be healthy, but then you back it up with unhealthy, and we all see how it ends.
That's right.
Here's another one for you. Earth City or Flowery Branch?
Oh, Flowery Branch. Hate to knock on Earth City, but I need to elaborate because there's a lot of people.
We'll just leave it at that. Ryan, we'll catch up on that one later.
Okay, you can get me.
Okay, now here's the tough one. Who wins in a game? The 2018 team or the 2021 team?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know what I mean? 2021.
You want to elaborate just because they won it?
They won it. They were very connected. There were a lot of people on that team that were part of 18. So there's that element of the hunger, really the starvation to taste that taste versus the element of when you first get there of, hey, it's kind of cool to be invited to the party. That's just human nature. We talk about it all the time. I know when it first happens, there'll be a lot of talk that there'll be a lot, I call it coach speak, that tries to really is probably just trying to message that let's not be glad to be at the party.
All right. Your most favorite trade that you've made?
Ooh, favorite. It's got to be the first one. And that would be when we had the 2 pick in St. Louis and we dropped back. I call it the RG3 trade. Washington moved up to take RG3. Then we continue to trade back. But to be a rookie GM and be a part of pulling that off, that does show you, Ryan and Rand, that there is actually a lot of luck in this. Because I had no clue what I was doing. They did know this, though. Wow, there's a lot of people who want this pick. So you were able to tell other teams, let's call it with decision makers, leaders that had a lot more wisdom, cloud experience, and you're kind of nervous to make that call. What you weren't nervous to know is, hey, I don't know what point chart you're using, but someone else is offering a lot more than you. So I don't think this thing's getting done.
All right. And this
I think I remember writing on a card, franchise QB doesn't have a point. There's no point chart for a franchise QB.
No.
Throw that one out. I mean, I give Jimmy Johnson credit. Just think, Jimmy Johnson, I mean, who would have thought he was the analytic nerd that we were all looking for in the NFL? But people still use that chart, but it doesn't work with franchise QBs.
No, you got to throw it out of the window when you're talking quarterbacks. And this is the final question from us here with the first pick before we move on to the two that I got from our friends. Who plays Les Snead in the Les Snead biopic?
You got to ask Kara that one. I'm terrible at pop culture, Rand. So make sure this dude's a stud.
If I'm giving an answer, I would have said Brad Pitt from when he played. Who did he play, Ryan, in the baseball movie?
Billy Bean.
When he played Billy Bean, that is so you, and just the way he carries himself, the way he goes about his business. That is the epitome of Les Snead, and he's already played the role and was good at it. That would be my pick for you. I'm sure.
You know, my favorite. I would almost have to say, who played Jack Bauer? Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
I mean, only because I like the Jack Bauer.
No, that's a good one too. You're pretty good.
But that might have been the last time I did television, and now I can't say this. Every now and then, it's almost like on vacation is when I'll pull out Netflix and Amazon and watch what everybody does, because I can't go home without Kara and actually get on to those. And I don't really try. I'd rather read, but then you find out, wow, there's some really good stuff out there. But I was a big Jack Bauer fan.
It is, and now that I know, I'm gonna send you some series to watch.
Here's a great question, Ray. We're going back to Tiger Woods. You'll appreciate this. So you grow up kind of with Tiger Woods, and boy, was he a badass. And what I loved about him is, man, in golf, a lot of times golf seemed like it was very diplomatic. Let's just get along. I mean, you played with him on that final Sunday. He was staring you down. So let's fast forward it to when he won his last Masters. So we're doing a Sunday draft meeting. James Gladstone, James Gladstone, I basically say, hey guys, we're done meeting. We're watching Tiger. I mean, this could be this. I mean, we're going to win another one. Let's do it. Let's all sit back and watch it. James Gladstone, I don't know if he knew who Tiger Woods was. He was so furious, Rand, that we were calling off the draft meeting to watch Tiger Woods win. Basically, at this point, his last major, his last Masters. So
we're actually going to have Gladstone on at some point here. So I'm gonna make sure I bring that one up to ask him.
Bring that. He didn't say a lot. He deferred to myself. But if you looked at his body language, Rand, he was fuming because we were getting behind schedule, and we're all in there. I guess we lived and died for however many holes he was in contention to finally win that thing.
All right, so for this next question, I'm gonna need some help from our producer Striker. Can we get the bobblehead picture up? So tell us.
Is this Tony Pastor's?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. Just tell us about this bobblehead and the level of detail. Because Striker, Ryan, and to our viewers out there, I don't know if you could see it, but there is a straw in Les's mouth on this bobblehead. The level of detail. Can you tell us about this one?
Well, right now I can't wait to get down to Tony's office and go, okay, this is a penalty. It's at least 15 yards. We'll talk about, a suspension on doing this. Now, what I did learn about myself, Ran, is when I first saw that, how vain I actually was, because at that point I went right into, okay, if we're going to roll this thing out, now, again, I don't think anyone's buying it. It's one of those, if you hand it out in a stadium, if you hand out 60,000, 40,000 get left behind and they got to clean up. But point being is, no matter how this thing ends, it's not going to look like version 1. We got to get Brad Pitt. We got to get Jack Bauer. But, I did learn that, okay, wow, there's some vein in there for sure.
All right, and the final question, and you're gonna know where this came from. Tell us about the Bunk Room.
Oh man, farms. It's probably going back to one of the, if you go my pop culture and the cool, what's the Montana show? Taylor Sheridan.
Oh yeah. God damn.
Yellowstone. So you remember they had the bunkhouse. So we got the bunkhouse. The cool thing is in have a house is, Cali houses can be small, more outdoor living out here. Not Syracuse, Ron. We can kind of go outdoors all year round. It's 72 and sunny a lot out here. No shoveling snow. But there's there's this bunk room in the house. Kind of got 4 bunk beds, and 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. So it was made for if you ever going to rent this thing out. So the reference is this. There will be people in this case who gave the question away, Ray Farmer, but it could be Rand, it could be old friends, and they want to come visit, and I'll always go, hey, so if you're close, if we go back, it's like, you know what? Don't get that hotel room. Just stay in the bunk room, and we'll kind of go back and age 50s, kind of have a little bit of a moment in the frat house. We might as well be able to bring back, the frat house, even though we're getting closer to AARP, whatever, their standards are than coming out. So that's the bunk room. It's a cool little spot to put people. And there's been times you'll appreciate it. If Ray Farmer, Ray was a safety. Now I call him, he's like a 5 tech. So he's about 6'3", close to 6'4". I'll let y'all take the 5 tech instead of safety. And boy, he's laid in there, and there might be somebody else on the top bunk because you can't have Ray on one bottom and someone else on the bottom because Ray's feet go over to the other bed. So, but it is kind of funny in that you're like, wow, we're grown men and we're doing a slumber party. But I can tell you, there's if you ever get a chance to do that, whether it's bunk room or not, to spend some time with people you're close with and kind of go back to, and maybe just taking a day, a night, 2 days. In Ray's case, it can be a month, and just go back to being like we were college kids again.
Oh, is that it, Rand? That's all you got for him?
Nah, that's it, man. Les, I just want to say I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on, being transparent, having a conversation. This was fun. Like I said, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me and Ryan and with the First Pick podcast. So we appreciate
this kind of reminds me of that waiting room back in Jacksonville. It's like being in the, it's like being, there's nothing else better to do than talk to you guys.
All we're missing, Les, is the cute nurse to walk in the background. You can go back to your 20s.
Get in trouble for that nowadays, Ron.
That's right. That's right.
I'm putting the headphones on. We're listening to a book on tape.
Book on tape on your Walkman, your cassette, not the 8-track. Thank you so much. I cannot appreciate this enough. Thank you enough for this, Les, because obviously I didn't have a relationship with you. I have a relationship with Rand, who knows you quite well. And you have exceeded my expectations based on the things that I've seen you say in the past and read. So thank you for taking some time out. And the next time you're in Syracuse, let me know, and I'll get you a shovel. We'll shovel some snow.
Yep. You got a bunk room, Ryan?
I got a bunk room. Look, man, I got an AARP thing in the mail today, Rand, so I know exactly what Les is talking about. I am closer to retirement than I am to college, so I'm all in on the bunk room. I love it. Thank you, Les. I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you, Lester.
See y'all.